What's up everyone, good to see you in the next style transfer lesson. Today we are tackling the second case, which involves turning this sunset into a night. And I won't lie, this will be one of the longer lessons in this training, but it's great to show an honest process from start to finish. It's a very advanced case, but I hope you'll be inspired by the various techniques used here. Regardless of the subject, there will be tons of matte painting techniques you can use in a commercial work, so let's get at it. As you remember, the first thing is to create a color reference. And in this case we'll use Flux with Krea. Much more affordable, so that's definitely a win. We have a simple interface here. We can upload our reference image, the same sunset. We can control the weight of this reference. And what's cool about Krea is that it's pretty user-friendly. You can slide to control the weight of this reference. We can modify the aspect as well. There are a few popular aspects to choose from, all that you need. In the prompt, we just write something like night, blue hour, and that's all. Nice and simple. And with a wave of 0.6, we get something compositionally similar, but it's not the same scene. If we increase the weight, we start getting closer to what we had compositionally. We even have glimpses of the buildings we initially had. But the problem is the lighting is too similar to the initial one. The sunset keeps coming through. If we set this weight very high, we'll see that the sunset lighting remains as it was, which is not what we want. If we lower the weight, the prompt will have more significance. AI will probably generate a bay, but it's a bit far-fetched, also the lighting leans more towards night rather than the mentioned blue hour. So I think the best result for us is this one. And that's that. We've finished the first step, we have our color reference. Moving on, we are back to Magnific. This is where we use style transfer and relight. Let's start with relight this time. Let's upload our input image, which is the sunset, and the color reference. We can enter a prompt. The same thing as before in Flux, but if we don't enter anything, that's also fine. When it comes to the wave of strength, we go to the upper limit, just like we did last time. And regarding the settings, we only change the background. We run it and see you in a minute. That was fast. And just like that, we get this nighttime color overlay. Geometry generally holds up, but in the scene with many details, especially around architecture, it gets distorted too much. However, the overall result is consistent and quite nice, and I think it's a good base to work with. And just like in the first lesson, we make the style transfer. This pass will hopefully give us some parts of the image that we can transplant on top. We expect hallucinations here and there, but we should get some parts to work with. I'm gonna start with the reference and the input image. We can enter the same prompt. And we usually start with style at 60 and structure at 90. In cases like this usually works best. Moving forward. We have several style transfers with different values. And the style transfer changes everything dramatically. But it can also give us some elements that we can use. In this case, the most useful element will be water. The gradients here are much more nighttime-like. We'll definitely paste it in. Besides that, we might use some fragments of a faintly visible city in the background. We'll see how it looks in post-production. Alright, back to Photoshop. And once again, we have all our layers. We start with the sunset, we have the relight, and we have style transfer. I'll start with preparing the water pass. We just want to have nice clean water throughout. Later we will insert it into the render. So here's a quick time-lapse showing that. In this lesson there will be many time-lapses, so we are gonna kill all of elevator music. Here it goes. Next up, we'll have some out-of-the-box thinking. We'll lower the opacity to about 60%. We did the same last time. The reason for doing so is that we want to bring some details from the original rendering.
Relight is pretty low resolution and we can see there's some poor quality mountains coming through this area.
However, now the difference between render and relight is too big. In the previous scenario we could get away with painting over the highlights, the difference wasn't that significant. So this time we'd do a rough color grading to match the image to the overall. I'll put a mask on this layer and just observe how the colors change as I work on it. And now we are aiming to get as close to the reference as possible. You will realize fairly soon that we won't be able to do it perfectly, but getting close enough should be enough. So we would start by reducing the values. It's hard to do this globally on a single curve, but the important thing is we move in good direction. We could do a typical color balance, adding blue to most of the areas we're working with. We can also make more specific changes like hue and saturation, targeting greens and turning them towards blue. The same goes for targeting the beach. So at this point you throw all the color grading tricks that you have. We also don't expect to solve every problem just by doing this. Elevator please. I think it's getting close to what we need. Now when we apply blending, the colors are more similar. It doesn't have to be perfect. I think that level of similarity is okay. That should be enough for Magnific to eventually blend it together nicely. So we'll just save it and do a quick upscaler pass. This is a pass to blend everything together a bit better. It's not our final Magnific pass yet. We have pretty typical settings, creativity at 2 and HDR at -1. We just do it to blend both layers together a little bit. There are places where the relight low resolution really doesn't look too good, so we want to restore some of this fidelity here. Back to Photoshop. We paste our upscaler pass and bring some details back from the original layer. We can see our color grading wasn't perfect, but at this moment the only thing we need to do is to create another layer and brush in some blue color.
I will skim through that part and leave the timelapse going. From a technical point, there is nothing interesting here. Just masking things in, masking things out, and a little bit of color grading, which we already showed in this and previous lesson.
We are getting there, step by step. I think it's a good time to focus on water. This is an extremely long process and without any interesting aspects to it. I will run the timelapse and play the elevator music soon.
Let's say we've got it more or less done.
Now I think that in terms of the overall feel of the night, we are in a pretty good place. But we'll do something that will have a huge impact on how this visualization looks. We'll do some paint overs, lots of them actually. First we'll turn on the lights, make it more attractive so it doesn't look so dark and gloomy. What we can do is simply create an ellipse and introduce some color here. We can color grade it, very straightforward stuff. And we can basically do the same for the smaller pools. We are done, it's clearly brighter and more elevated. Now another step of this transformation. We'd like to add some artificial lights. Mainly on the buildings, but also on these yachts and perhaps on the distant docks.
So now I'm going to do something next level. I'm going to take a simple brush and paint over some orange color here and there.
And you might be wondering, geez Bart, what are you doing? But soon we'll use creative upscalers and it will magically turn into a lit up night. By the way, this technique of brushing some spots is pretty useful for changing actual photographs too. Oftentimes we have a backplate and we need to change it from day to night. And adding some interior lighting will help, but anyway. For now, I'll just roughly mark where some windows might be. We use different blending modes, adding color. This is very basic drawing with soft brushes. We'll add a few more bright spots on top. It's nice to think about some sort of rhythms while placing them. Rhythms are very pleasing aesthetically.
Alright, now we can copy these lights and add some vertical motion blur to them. We'll use them to create reflections in the water as well. We also added some lights along the waterfront, so it doesn't look so lifeless. Next up, we darken these roofs as well, very roughly. And lower the opacity. It's another small tweak to make this scenario looking like a night. Alright, we managed to pull through. I think we can run this through the enhancer. And we are back. We've already done a couple of upscales here. We'll explain what was the purpose behind them. This is a 2x upscale on a full resolution. So this should be our consistency pass. It's the closest to the original, but it's not necessarily a good thing. On one hand, there's everything we had before. The lights on the waterfront, the buildings. But in my opinion, it is also the dirtiest looking one. There are a lot of those inaccuracies we had before, plus quite a bit of unpleasant micro-contrast and some hallucinations. Next one are the half-resolution upscales, and this time we tried with and without a prompt. Here we see creativity at 5, resemblance at -5 with a prompt, and in this case the prompt causes quite a few hallucinations. All these areas in the mountains turn into something that looks like a view from the plain, like in nighttime cities. Even part of this palm tree turns into some streets. But there's actually also a lot of cool content we can use. The water looks much better. And another generation with the same settings, but without a prompt. And surprisingly enough, it has the natural aspect that definitely stands out. Something starts to come together here. It definitely looks more attractive in terms of the surroundings. Some elements, like the lights by the waterfront, seem to have disappeared. But with so many different versions, we can take something from each. If we had to focus on just one, I think this one is very nice and we will get the most out of it. One more additional thing we wanted to do is an extra upscale just for this resort area from full resolution. But since it's a crop, we can do it at 4x on standard settings, 3 and -1, and with a prompt. I think this is the best way to get some really nice detail here. Of course there are some hallucinations here and there, but it's fairly close to what we had initially. Lovely. Now we are finally bringing everything together. One last time we are back to Photoshop. And at this point we take the best from each world. We use different layers here and we also utilize our original rendering. We have a great level of freedom to take anything that we like. Well, the monkey is the most important, of course. Who cares about the building or who cares about the continuity? Monkey for the win. And phew, that's that. We've managed to complete this transformation. Now we can take a look at the before and after. And the difference is quite significant, like night and day.
So this image was made in about an hour and a half, which is insane if you think about it. You can always go above and beyond and keep it even more consistent. Nothing is stopping you from doing more style transfers and all that. So that's about it, guys. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.